In this video, we are going to be talking all about the solar plexus chakra, what it means, what it looks like when it is balanced or imbalanced, and in the end, I'll be sharing with you some ways to get it back into balance and a few affirmations that can help you along the way. My name is Catherine. I'm an energy healer, spiritual coach, and nurse practitioner. If you need personalized energy healing or a coaching session from yours truly, then you can go to my website at catherineglassman.com, or you can email me at hello@catherineglassman.com. Please keep in mind that all of this information is channeled through meditation, and so if you resonate with the information, then great, and if not, then that's totally cool too. So what is the solar plexus chakra? This is the energy center that is the third from the bottom. So you have your root chakra, your sacral chakra, and then you have your solar plexus chakra. This resides between your navel and the bottom of your sternum. So it's like the epigastric area. The Sanskrit name for this particular chakra is Manipura, which translates to the city of jewels. And so when I meditate on this particular chakra, I find that that name is actually very fitting because I see light. And I actually see like the sun or like sunshine, but I'll go over that a little bit later. But this chakra governs your identity and authority within the world. So the City of Jewels actually makes a lot of sense because it's basically showing how you shine within the world. So if you were to take like a diamond and you hold it up to light and you see all of these sparkles and lights and it's very eye-catching, that's pretty much what this chakra is doing. It's how you present yourself to others. Now, what's interesting about this particular chakra is that, now this is just from what I've seen in meditation, is that this is the first chakra that goes from the innate human animalistic side of ourselves to a more conscious version of ourselves. So the root chakra and the sacral chakra, those are very innately driven from our human side, right? So the the root chakra is all about like survival and foundation, the things that you must have in order to survive, basically. And then the sacral chakra is all about passion and creativity. Those are things that just kind of pour out of us naturally. But once we get into the solar plexus chakra, this is where we start to decide who we are going to be in the world or how we're going to present ourselves. And so ideally, what we would like is for us to have authority and confidence and present ourselves into the world by showing our creativity from our sacral chakra. And just the actual physical placement of the chakra on the human body even coincides with this information. So it's almost like if you were to follow the map of consciousness, for example, the lower frequencies are like visibly and physically lower on the map, right? So fear, guilt, or whatever. And then as you ascend with the vibration, it goes into love and consciousness and things like that. So it's actually doing that on your chakras. So you're literally just kind of ascending from a human animalistic energy. And the higher you go up on your chakras, the more spiritual and connected you become. So that's interesting. So with this chakra, this is all about your identity and who you are deciding to be today. Obviously, this can't be accomplished until your lower chakras have been balanced, okay? So your root chakra has to be balanced, and so you have to have a good foundation. You can't be in a survival mode because whenever you're just trying to survive, you're not actually shining. That's not who you are. That is just you surviving. Okay, we have to do what we have to do in order to survive. Once we get out of survival, then what comes out naturally is our passion and creativity, something that just sparks us into just doing things that make us feel really good. But of course, having an overactive sacral chakra, you can lean too far into the pleasures in life. But once you have balanced that chakra and you move up to the solar plexus chakra, now you are deciding who you are actually going to be. This is the chakra that governs your values, and it also governs your authority. So when you move through the world and you are making decisions based on the things that you actually want from a very balanced place, This is the chakra that shines. And it's so funny because I keep saying the word shine, but the Sanskrit name is the city of jewels. It just makes complete sense because this is the chakra that you present. And I just love the visual that I always get from it. And another interesting thing is that it has the word solar in it, right? Solar plexus. So what do you think of when you hear solar? You think of the sun. And I don't know about you, but every time I drew a sun when I was younger, it would always be with a yellow crayon. And so the energy of the sun is that of just shining upon the world so that you can clearly see where you're going. It's during the daytime that we make our moves. This is when we spark our creativity. This is when we just start making things happen. So what are some signs of a balanced solar plexus chakra? The first and probably the most obvious sign is confidence. When you interact with someone who has confidence, they really do have like a bit of a glow to them, right? It's kind of magnetic and attractive. And it's not necessarily because they're always going to be right, because they're not, but they show confidence just in their ability. They have confidence in knowing that whatever is presented to them in any given moment, they will overcome it. These people, they tend to lift their heads high. Their chin is high. They're looking forward. They're not necessarily walking around looking at the floor, but they stand up straight and they face the world head on. Another sign of someone who has a balanced solar plexus chakra is that they are not scared to follow their intuition. Now, in my opinion, intuition, the actual intuition, comes from the third eye, usually. But it's from the solar plexus chakra of making the choice to follow that intuition. So a lot of us will have intuition or have like a feeling about something, but will choose not to honor it out of fear or, they just think that they're going to be wrong or they don't want to look stupid. But people with a balanced solar plexus chakra don't care if they look stupid because they know that there really is no such thing as looking stupid. Sure, you can be correct or incorrect on your assumption about something, but you can still have confidence in the lack of fear of following that intuition because either way, you're either going to be right or you're going to learn something. But of course, there are many people that have intuition about something and they don't follow it, but the situation that they created for themselves ends up being worse because they just decided to not follow their gut feeling, right? They didn't follow their solar plexus feeling. But ironically, if you were to just follow your gut feelings more often, you would probably find that you just tend to be right more often. And the more you follow your gut feeling and the more it turns out that you're right, the more confidence you actually build. But of course, this takes time and it takes building trust within your own self and your own ability. But when this happens, it is the solar plexus chakra that is activated. Another sign of a balanced solar plexus chakra is high self-esteem. Now, it's one thing to feel confident in your ability to do something or to move through the world, but it's another to have high self-esteem about who you are and valuing yourself enough to say no when you need to say no or set healthy boundaries or to honor what you need and what you want and to just simply go after it despite what other people have to say about it. They most certainly are not scared to just be themselves, and they very much adopt an attitude of, this is me, this is what you get. If you like it, great, let's be friends. If you don't like it, then please just get out of my way. Another sign of a balanced solar plexus chakra is they are ambitious. They just go after what they want and don't stop until they get there, or they have different feelings or they decide to change their mind. But this is usually accompanied with a balanced sacral chakra because once you've discovered what your passions and what sparks your creativity, then you move up to the solar plexus chakra and you just go after it now. And you don't really accept no as an answer. You just accept it more as a challenge of, okay, let me just figure out how to make it happen then. They adopt an attitude of failure is not an option. And regardless, they understand that there really is no such thing as failure if you're going after something that you believe in. They also tend to understand that being wrong or the answer no or failure, these are things that other people can put on you. And it's not necessarily something that you put upon yourself. So to entertain those kinds of ideas and energies are more, you're kind of just giving into what other people want to believe about you. But those with a balanced solar plexus chakra, they don't do that because they just don't give a about what other people have to think about them. Another sign of a balanced solar plexus chakra is that they are constantly evolving. They're always turning into a better version of themselves. This is because they are deciding who they're going to be. And they can probably start with, one aspect of themselves. They decide to adopt a certain habit and maybe do it for 21 days or 3 weeks or however long it takes to develop a new habit. They master it and then they move on to the next thing that they want to improve. These people often aren't really set in their ways, really, because they know that things can always be better. And the more parts of yourself that you improved, or so you feel need improvement, and once you master that, then you move on to the next thing, and then you just become more confident in your ability to change yourself in a positive way. Thus, just making this jewel shine even more. Now, what are some signs of an imbalanced solar plexus chakra? I think the first and probably the most obvious one would be feeling insecure. Now, of course, we can have moments of feeling insecure here and there, but this is just more of a constant feeling of insecurity all the time. You can recognize this in a lot of people in many different ways because there's different types of insecurity, right? I guess the most obvious ones would be either with physical appearance or with a particular behavior. So sometimes we can recognize people who want to change their physical appearance in order to kind of enhance who they are. But then you can also recognize people who alter their physical appearance to just look completely different. Or they are constantly altering their physical appearance at every moment so that you don't actually see the true default version of their human body. Sometimes they'll spend hours getting ready just to go to the grocery store or, just kind of go overboard on altering their physical appearance. And sometimes this is done to almost appear a little bit more confident because sometimes doing that can make you feel a little bit more confident when really it's just putting a mask over who you actually are. Now, of course, all of this is a spectrum, right? And so, you can't just have a blanket saying that people who put makeup on or have plastic surgery or whatever are insecure. So you can't necessarily say that because it's a spectrum. So it's very individualized and it's just something that you would have to explore yourself. But that's just one example, right? But another example is with behavior. Sometimes, someone can behave in a way that kind of overcompensates for something that may be lacking behind closed doors or within themselves. And so somebody might treat others with a certain type of projection kind of energy because they may be ashamed of showing who they actually are. So they're very much like one and the same, whether it's physical appearance or behavior or whatever. They're still masking, at the end of the day, them. I think sometimes it just makes you feel a little bit more comfortable to present a facade because the facade can be well liked. If you study, social interactions long enough, you'll see what people like and don't like, and then you can just create this image or this person that is kind of made up in a way, but that people like. And so that's what you put forward. But again, there is a wide range of different insecurities and I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with changing your behavior so that you can fit a little bit more easily into social settings. But there is a difference in altering your behavior so that you can express who you are, but in a more socially appropriate way versus changing who you are because you are ashamed of who you are. So I do want to mention something about physical deformities on the human body. Now, there are many of us out there who have had accidents or have been born a certain way, and therefore there is a deformity, or sometimes we have a disorder, like Tourette's, for example, that may be unattractive to other people or whatever. Now, of course, when somebody has these things, there's always a deeper spiritual meaning behind it. And only that soul will really understand why they have chosen to have that body, because their soul chose it. Sometimes it's a karmic decision in order to overcome judgment. Sometimes it is learning the lesson of overcoming what other people have to think or say about you and just truly developing a deeper sense of self-love. Regardless what it is, it's a very advanced soul thing to do. Very advanced souls choose these bodies because these scenarios help quicken the spiritual evolution of that particular soul. This, of course, is very challenging on the human level, right? Especially in the age of technology right now. Just on your phone, you can just go through all of your social feeds and see so many beautiful people traveling, and they have, all of these things, and they're rich and they just have the best lives, right? And then here you are with, the issue that you have, and looking at those things can make you feel insecure. I mean, we know it's been pretty well documented that social media just can really punch you in the gut when it comes to your self-esteem. But what's interesting is that the pretty people and the rich people that you see on social media, it often is really not what it seems. And, the pretty people that feel the need to put so many pictures out there of themselves tend to feel more insecure than most people. And I think there's already been research to prove that, couples who tend to constantly post pictures of their relationship often are less happy than those who don't feel the need to post pictures. So it's just an interesting, weird, ironic thing that happens, right? You look at these people and think that, they have it all, when really they themselves feel very insecure. But then it also makes you feel insecure. But if you see people that have a deformed body or some sort of disorder and they put themselves on social media and just show who they really are, sure, they're probably feeling insecure as well, but it's easier for us to relate to them because they are real. They're not hiding who they are. They're not pretending to be this beautiful or rich person. They're just showing you who they are. And because of that, it makes it easier for us to connect with them on a deeper level versus somebody, like an Instagram model that has millions of followers. Sure, you can look at the pictures and find it visually pleasing, but there's really no connection. You feel very distant from them. But with people who are actually sharing who they actually are, you have a connection to them. You get drawn into them on a much more, just a deeper level. You look at them and you root for them. You want to see them shine because you see a little bit of yourself. You see that if they can do it, then maybe I can do it. And it's so interesting because they pull, instead of making you feel insecure, like some of the rich people or the beautiful people make you feel insecure, these people actually make you feel like maybe you can do it too. Like they pull some sort of confidence out of you. There's something very special about watching the average human just put themselves out there and just go for it. It's cool because it's like the fall of the celebrity, but the rise of the average person. So that's what I love about social media. Another sign of an imbalanced solar plexus chakra is lack of confidence. This is more in regards to their own decision making and their contribution to the world. So they tend to be very indecisive. And a more obvious sign is someone who kind of bandwagons. So bandwagoning is basically just adopting a philosophy or an idea simply because other people are doing it and they don't want to feel stupid or look stupid or be wrong. This just tends to be easier because it just helps you blend in and you go unnoticed, and it's less work than having to stand up for something that you believe in. Another sign of an imbalanced solar plexus chakra is speaking ill about other people. Now, I'm not referring to confiding in someone about a situation and you are venting about the situation and just trying to get clarification on it. I'm talking more about just talking bad about someone, and that's the only contribution that you're making. This, of course, goes back to the bullying theory, right? You know, bullies tend to pick on other kids to make themselves feel better. It's the same thing. And it ends up just going onto the same spectrum of insecurity. Sometimes this is just done out of jealousy. And so the act of, speaking poorly about someone in your mind puts them at like a lower level. And then you boost yourself up, and it's really, you're just kind of trying to trick your brain into thinking that you're better than someone when, it's pretty obvious that that's not the case and you're just probably insecure. I mean, I'm sure you'll find that anybody that you know that is confident and just making things happen for themselves, they really just don't have the time or the energy to talk about other people because it just doesn't serve them. It's like they just literally don't have time for it. And so if you find that there is a particular person that just constantly talks bad about other people all the time, then it just makes you wonder, why? Another sign of an imbalanced solar plexus chakra is having unhealthy boundaries. This can often look like people pleasing or constantly choosing to be around certain people, even though you don't necessarily vibe with them, only because you want to have friends or you are scared of being disliked. Sometimes you'll tolerate bad behavior from someone and they treat you poorly, but you continue to endure it because you've been friends for a very long time or because it's a family member, and you just think that it's a natural part of having friendships or relationships, when there really could be a possibility that you may lack self-respect and don't think that you are truly worthy of being treated well by other people. Now, of course, all these things are individualized, right? So, no one will ever truly know until you do some inner work and, figure that out on your own. But I know I've been guilty of it. I remember during my awakening, I was starting to learn that maybe some of the relationships that I had with people may not be serving me as much as I thought they were. I can think of one particular friendship that I had, and honestly, we were friends because I was just so excited that she liked me. I thought she was just the coolest person ever. I just really looked up to her and, admired her. But on the same token, she kind of made fun of a lot of people. She often called people losers. She kind of wasn't that nice, but I guess there was a part of me that felt honored that she was nice to me. But she actually wasn't nice to me in the beginning. She really was very unfriendly. But I don't know, there was just something that changed in her, and then she liked me, and then we were friends. But then after my awakening, obviously my body is changing, I'm changing, I'm starting to see things for what they really are. And I noticed that every time I was around her physically, my stomach hurt. And it took me the longest time, I think years, for me to actually put two and two together, because I don't know, I'm sure part of it was just denial and I didn't want to believe it. But During that time, I was still partying and going to raves and drinking and doing party drugs and whatever. And she was often someone that I would do that with. And so, but my stomach hurt every single time. So I just chalked it up to, bad behavior in that sense of, not treating my body well, putting things in it that didn't belong there, things like that. And so, of course, as I'm doing my own work, right, and working on my own solar plexus chakra, I started to wonder if that relationship was not good for me. Because there would be times where she would make fun of me, right? And sure, it's one thing to make fun of each other playfully, but it's another to really kind of be condescending, but play it off as a joke. And so, if I ever had any issues with a relationship I was in or work stuff, she just kind of made fun of it and didn't really think that it was that serious. I don't know. And so as I'm starting to discover these things, I was getting ready to take a trip to see her. And I just put it out there and I said, okay, if this relationship is not one that's good for me, then I need you to give me a very clear and blatant sign. And as soon as I got on the plane to go see her, my stomach hurt so bad. And so now I didn't have the excuse of, I partied too much, because I didn't. I literally just got on a plane and now my stomach was hurting. It hurt so bad that it felt like I was developing an ulcer. Because I've had an ulcer before and they hurt. And the entire weekend that I was with her, my stomach hurt so bad. It was a little debilitating. And, and then I got on the plane, and as soon as I landed in my home city, the pain just went away. And that's when I knew that this person was probably not that good for me. But wouldn't you know it, where you have an ulcer is in your epigastric region, which is where your solar plexus chakra is. So from that situation, I learned that I really just didn't honor who I was, and I didn't have very good boundaries with her. But naturally, now that that's resolved, I don't get that pain anymore. So what can we do to balance the solar plexus chakra? The first thing that you can do is you can start doing the things that you say that you're going to do. You have to be a person of your word. For example, if you say that you're going to get up at 5 a.m., then you actually have to get up at 5 a.m. You can't set your alarm for 5 a.m. and then look at it and then just turn it off and then go back to bed and get up at 6:30. You have to actually get up at 5 a.m. The reason why this is important is because the more you say that you're going to do something and then you don't do it, you are actually teaching yourself that you can't follow through on anything. When you continue to teach yourself this creates an insecurity or a lack of confidence in your own ability. But if you do the thing, get up at 5 a.m., and you force yourself to do it, you have a little bit of discipline, and then you keep doing it, eventually it just becomes a habit. Once this habit has formed, then you teach yourself that you can follow through on things. And instead of having a lack of confidence, you start to build confidence. Now, of course, they say that 3 weeks is the magic time, right, of building a new habit. And so you can start with one simple thing. Get up at 5 a.m. and do it for 3 weeks. And then eventually you're just naturally getting up at 5 a.m. Then you can move on to, making lunches for yourself for work. And the more you do this, the more that you find that you can actually do what you say you're going to do. And it goes from simple tasks and simple habits to, okay, well, now I want to start a business. And now you've already trained yourself that you can do what you say you're going to do. So then you get started on starting a business or buying a house or going to school and getting your master's degree or whatever the thing is. We all know that feeling of accomplishment. We know that feeling of saying that we're going to do something and then we actually do it. And then we're standing on the other end of it like, holy cow, me, I did that. That's cool. And then with that kind of energy, you can encourage other people to do anything too. Like, oh, okay. So maybe there isn't anything super special about, those people, maybe they just did it. Maybe they just went after it and did it. So just start off by doing one little thing and just actually doing it. Another way to balance the solar plexus chakra is to set healthy and clear boundaries for yourself. Now, a prerequisite to this is to understand what your likes and dislikes are and what makes you feel safe and unsafe. So, of course, again, the root chakra needs to be balanced first for some cases. And, if you have an issue with codependency or people pleasing, then of course, those issues need to be healed on an individual basis. Because sometimes we act in a way of survival or as a trauma response to those things being unhealed. And so those things need to be addressed first so that you can understand where your boundaries even are. But once you've done the work and you have finally come to the conclusion that what you are asking for is legitimate and it's a fair request, then you have to set the boundary and you have to stick to it. When you have flexible boundaries or, every once in a while, it's okay, right? If you don't have firm boundaries, then the message that you are sending to people is that you don't need to be taken seriously. And you are also sending a message to yourself that you don't have any self-respect and that you aren't worthy. But again, it's all individualized, and these are all things that, you have to come to the conclusion for yourself and you have to be honest with yourself of why you are making the choices that you are. Another way to balance the solar plexus chakra is to stick up for yourself. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be confrontational or blunt or unprofessional, especially if you're in a professional setting, because you can still stick up for yourself, but in a professional and polite manner. But by sticking up for yourself and the things that you need, you are just teaching yourself that you are going to honor yourself because you love yourself and you do find yourself to be worthy. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody earns the right to treat you poorly. Nobody earns the right to be condescending. Now, of course, sometimes we just have to pick and choose our battles, right? But we're just at this age now where it's just not okay. It doesn't matter who you are because, you know what? The customer isn't always right. Now, sure, bosses aren't going to like that, right? They're not going to exactly want their employees to have that kind of mentality, but that's just because they want the money. But sometimes honoring you and making sure that you are being respected and treating well is a little bit more important. You are worthy of protection. You are one of God's creations. That's kind of a big deal. The way that I like to do this is I like to envision myself as a child, right? So if I see a child and, they're being treated poorly by someone, or they're being yelled at, or they're just, someone's being very condescending to them or whatever, it's very easy for some of us to stick up for that child because hey, why are you picking on this kid, right? But sometimes we let it slide when it comes to ourselves. Oh, okay, it's not a big deal. If you do it to this little kid, then I'm going to step in. But if you do it to me, it's not a big deal. Well, sometimes it is a big deal. Sometimes you have to make it a big deal. Now, again, your delivery, you got to pick and choose your battles. Because sometimes, you just have to let it go because you can't argue with someone of a lower consciousness. Sometimes that's just a waste of time and energy. So you really just have to find the balance. But I used to be terrible with this as a nurse. It's really not uncommon for nurses to get treated like garbage, especially in the emergency room, by everybody, by the patients, by the family members, by the doctors, right? But over the course of my awakening, I have learned that as an act of self-preservation, you just can't allow that. And it doesn't, and again, you don't have to be confrontational. By just simply looking them in the eye and telling them that they don't need to be disrespectful or rude, especially to somebody that is trying to help them, just by doing that can send a very powerful message. And I have had people become very apologetic just from saying what I just said to you just now. So you don't have to be rude back. You don't have to stoop to that kind of lower energy. You just kind of have to set the record straight. You just have to remind them of who they're talking to. I don't know, maybe it makes it easier being spiritual because I always work with the angels. And so I know I have a team of guides and angels like with me all the time. And so then I'm like, can you believe this guy? Like they're talking to me like that with this legion behind me? It's crazy. Another way to balance the solar plexus chakra is to sunbathe. I thought this was super random when this came through during meditation, but it makes perfect sense. And so when you sunbathe, you are absorbing the sun's energy. And it's not the energy of like the UV rays necessarily, but it's more of the energy of shining light upon the world. It's like when the sun shines, it's just very unapologetic. And it's bright and it's beautiful and everybody knows what the sun is and everybody knows where the sun is at any given moment. And so by sunbathing and like putting your face towards the sun, you just absorb that bright, beautiful, big energy. Now, I do want to make a side note when it comes to setting healthy boundaries and sticking up for yourself, especially when it comes to people that are currently in your life. Usually, one of two things are going to happen. Either you start to stick up for yourself and you start to set boundaries, then maybe this person will actually evolve with you and your changes. If this happens, then this is beautiful. And you want to hold on to those relationships because they're willing to put in the work and they're willing to grow with you and to watch you grow. They will be proud of you. And if anything, it will leak into their lives and it'll make them want to do the same thing. But if that doesn't happen, then the relationship may dissolve and cease to exist over time. Sometimes this happens because people have gotten used to the older version of you. And sometimes that version of you was a little bit more, just easier maybe to manipulate, or maybe it just served them a little bit more, the older version of you. And so it becomes a little inconvenient when you're starting to set boundaries or trying to, stick up for yourself. Sometimes people just don't like that. And so if these relationships dissolve and go away, then, it will be really important that you send them off with love. Okay? The reason why is because every person that comes into your life is serving you in some way. Many times, these people are actually a part of your soul group and they are helping you learn a certain lesson. So regardless of what happens, if you have a falling out or there's some sort of drama or whatever, these things often are meant to happen for your own spiritual growth. And so really, you can't get to where you're going without them. So always honor that relationship. Never hold any, resentment or hate in your heart when these relationships dissolve, because you don't want to hold on to that kind of energy because it just doesn't serve you. And plus you're sending that kind of energy to them anyway, and you don't want to send that kind of energy to anybody. Do the work of forgiveness, do the work of healing, and just simply let it go with love. Because really, at the end of the day, you just don't know what will happen. You don't know. And you don't want to end things on a bad note on your end. Now, what other people do is their decision, and that's out of your hands. But you have full control of who you're going to be and how you're going to act. Just some more side notes. Some of the organs that are associated with the solar plexus chakra is definitely the stomach and the thoracic spine and the pancreas. And some crystals that you can use are tiger's eye, citrine, and pyrite. And the affirmations that I have for this particular chakra is, I stand up for what I believe. And the other affirmation is, I am worth the fight, because you are. But with that being said, I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.